One bridesmaid demanded the couple delay their grand exit so she could film a TikTok alone in the venue. Another one sent the bride an actual invoice for emotional labor after a single dress fitting. And one, and I need you to really hear this, showed up to the dress fitting wearing her own veil. These are not characters from a reality show. These are real bridesmaids who completely forgot whose wedding it actually was. And we have 49 of them. Stay right there because this list gets so much worse and so much more unhinged with every single point. If you are already shaking your head, hit that new hype button right now, and let's blow this video up together. This one deserves it. 1. A woman in Ohio decided the bachelorette party had to be held in her hometown because she simply does not do airports. Not because of fear. Not because of a medical condition. Just pure personal preference dressed up as a boundary. The bride had already booked a rooftop suite in Nashville. The deposits were paid. The itinerary was printed. But none of that mattered because one bridesmaid needed everyone to drive 4 hours to celebrate in the town she already lived in. 2. A bridesmaid named Carla insisted her boyfriend walk her down the aisle at the wedding. Not at her own wedding, at her best friend's wedding. She brought it up casually during brunch, like it was the most reasonable request ever made by a human being. The bride stared at her for a full 10 seconds without blinking. Carla even suggested a specific entry angle that would give her boyfriend better lighting. The groom found out later and genuinely asked if they had accidentally sent invitations to the wrong event. 3. A bridesmaid sent the bride a 14-page Google Doc titled "My Vision for Your Big Day," like she had been hired as a wedding planner. The document had sections, subsections, and a color-coded timeline. There was even a mood board attached. The bride opened it expecting maybe a song suggestion or a dress note. Instead, she found font preferences, a preferred seating arrangement, and a strongly worded paragraph about the cocktail hour lighting. The groom read page 7 and quietly asked if they were still the ones getting married. 4. A young bridesmaid refused to wear the chosen dress color because Mercury was in retrograde and it clashed with her aura. She explained this to the bride with complete seriousness while holding a crystal. The dress was dusty rose. Perfectly normal. Perfectly beautiful. But apparently the universe had other plans for her energy field that weekend. The bride had already ordered all the dresses. The seamstress had done the alterations. Mercury did not care. Neither did the bridesmaid. She showed up suggesting burnt orange as a more spiritually aligned alternative. 5. A woman asked the bride to reschedule the entire wedding ceremony because it conflicted with her nail appointment. Not a medical procedure, not a flight. A nail appointment she had booked 3 weeks after the wedding date was announced. She even sent the salon's cancellation policy as supporting evidence for why rescheduling the wedding made more practical sense. The bride forwarded the message to her mother. Her mother forwarded it to the group chat. The nail technician later heard the story and gave the bridesmaid a bad review herself. 6. An older bridesmaid demanded a completely separate table at the reception specifically for her anxiety. She submitted the request in writing with a diagram. The table needed to face away from the speakers, away from the dance floor, and away from the bride's Uncle Gerald, who apparently triggered her nervous system. The venue coordinator received the email and called the bride to confirm it was real. It was real. The bride added the table. Gerald found out he was considered a source of anxiety, and honestly was not surprised at all. 7. A bridesmaid tried to negotiate her own spotlight moment during the couple's first dance. She approached the DJ privately before the reception started and explained that she had prepared a small interpretive movement piece that could happen in the background. The DJ looked at her for a long time before responding. She called it a complimentary performance that would add depth to the moment. The groom found out during the sound check when the DJ asked him which spotlight color she preferred. The bride canceled the background performance. The bridesmaid still swayed dramatically from her seat anyway. 8. A teen bridesmaid demanded the wedding cake flavor be changed because she was emotionally triggered by lemon. Not allergic, not intolerant. Emotionally triggered. She submitted this concern to the bride via a voice note that was 4 minutes and 30 seconds long. The bakery had already designed a 3-tier lemon elderflower cake that took 2 weeks to plan. The bride listened to the entire voice note twice. The cake stayed lemon. The bridesmaid ate 3 slices at the reception and did not mention her emotional condition even once during dessert. 9. A bridesmaid filed a formal complaint about her bouquet size after noticing it was 0.3 inches smaller than the maid of honors. She measured it. With an actual measuring tape she had brought to the venue inside her clutch purse, the florist received a typed message before the ceremony even began. It included measurements, photographs, and a request for immediate replacement. The bride was still getting her veil pinned when this complaint landed in her email. The florist added 2 extra stems. The bridesmaid held her bouquet 6 inches higher than everyone else in every single photo. 10. A woman required the photographer to sign a written contract promising that 40% of all wedding photos would feature her specifically. She arrived with the document already printed and highlighted. The photographer had photographed over 200 weddings. He had never been handed a personal appearance quota before arriving at a ceremony. The bride found out when the photographer called her the night before, sounding genuinely confused. The contract was not signed. The bridesmaid spent the entire day positioning herself directly beside the bride anyway, and achieved roughly 38% photo coverage through sheer determination alone. 11. A bridesmaid demanded the flower girl be removed from the entire ceremony because children steal focus. She sent this suggestion to the bride on a Tuesday morning like it was a simple scheduling change. The flower girl was the bride's 5-year-old niece who had been practicing her petal toss for 3 months. She had a custom dress. She had rehearsed her walk. She had told every single person at her kindergarten about it. The bridesmaid suggested replacing her with a decorative basket on a stand. The bride did not respond for 6 hours. The flower girl walked. She absolutely stole focus. Everyone loved it. 12. A young woman showed up to the dress fitting carrying her own veil in a garment bag just to see how it looked on her. She did not mention it beforehand. She simply arrived, hung it up, and waited for her moment. The bridal boutique assistant assumed it belonged to the bride and nearly steamed it. The bride turned around and found her bridesmaid standing in front of the mirror with a cathedral-length veil and a very satisfied expression. The bridesmaid said it was just out of curiosity. She had also brought a pair of bridal heels in her tote bag just in case. 13. An uncle's girlfriend who had somehow made it into the bridal party asked the officiant to mention her name during the vows for moral support. She submitted this request through a handwritten note delivered to the officiant before the rehearsal dinner. The officiant read it twice and called the bride. The bride called her fiancé. Her fiancé called his uncle. The uncle had no idea. The girlfriend explained that she had been emotionally present throughout the whole engagement and felt the vows should reflect that energy. The officiant declined. She mouthed her own name anyway during the ceremony while standing in the 3rd position. 14. A bridesmaid refused to attend the rehearsal dinner unless it was held at a restaurant she had previously reviewed on Yelp. She sent 3 acceptable options with her existing reviews attached as reference links. 2 of the restaurants were not available on the date. The 3rd one was 40 minutes from the venue. The bride had already made reservations at a place walking distance from the hotel where all the guests were staying. The bridesmaid said she could not in good conscience eat somewhere she had not personally vetted and rated. She ended up attending the original restaurant and left it a 4-star review the next morning. 15. A woman demanded the bride change the official wedding hashtag because it was not searchable enough for her followers. She presented this concern with analytics, actual engagement rate projections. She had done research. The original hashtag was sweet and personal and had taken the couple 2 weeks to agree on. None of that mattered because this bridesmaid had 12,000 Instagram followers and felt the hashtag lacked discoverability. The bride listened to the full explanation and did not change the hashtag. The bridesmaid created her own parallel hashtag for her personal coverage of the wedding and used it on 47 posts across a single weekend. 16. A bridesmaid submitted a 22-song Do Not Play list to the DJ, which accidentally included the bride's chosen first dance song. The DJ flagged it immediately and called the bride. The bridesmaid had submitted the list without mentioning it to anyone and expected full compliance before the reception began. Several of the banned songs were wedding classics. One was literally the national anthem. The bride called her to discuss the first dance song specifically. The bridesmaid said she found that particular song emotionally manipulative and suggested a replacement she had already identified. The DJ played the original song. The bridesmaid stood near the speaker, looking personally offended the entire time. 17. A bridesmaid tried to quietly add her own guest to the couple's seating chart without telling anyone. She slipped 2 extra names onto the printed layout the night before the wedding during setup. The venue coordinator noticed unfamiliar place cards appearing at a table that was already full. Nobody could identify who added them. The bride went through every bridesmaid one by one. It took 11 minutes to find the one who had casually invited her coworker and her coworker's fiancé because the venue looked really nice, and she thought there might be room. There was not room. There had never been room. 18. A woman insisted on rewriting her bridesmaid toast into a 20-minute healing journey monologue that was entirely about herself. She submitted a draft to the bride 2 days before the wedding for approval. The bride read it in full. The groom's name appeared once. The bride's name appeared 4 times. The bridesmaid's name appeared 31 times. There were 3 references to her past relationships, a chapter about her therapy breakthrough, and a closing poem she had written about personal growth. The bride asked her to shorten it. The bridesmaid showed up with the full version, printed and laminated, and delivered 14 minutes of it before the microphone was gently taken away. 19. A bridesmaid demanded the bridal suite include a dedicated corner specifically for her emotional support candles before the wedding morning even began. She arrived with a tote bag containing 11 candles, a lighter, a small wooden tray, and a handwritten scent schedule. The venue had a strict no open flame policy displayed on 3 separate signs. She pointed out that her candles were essential for regulating her nervous system during high-pressure events. The bride read the no flame policy out loud directly to her. The bridesmaids switched to battery-operated candles she had brought as backup and still arranged all 11 of them in the corner by 8 in the morning. 20. A bridesmaid called the florist directly and announced she would be placing a parallel flower order because the centerpieces did not match her personal brand. The florist thought it was a joke until a credit card number arrived by email. She wanted individual table arrangements that reflected her aesthetic separately from the wedding decor. The bride found out when the florist sent a confirmation to the wrong email address. The bride called immediately. The parallel order was canceled. The bridesmaid attended the reception, photographed only her own table setting from specific angles, and posted it with a caption suggesting she had been involved in the floral design process. 21. A bridesmaid asked to be formally introduced at the reception, with her own personal walk-up song like she was entering a professional boxing match. She submitted the song title to the DJ 3 days before the wedding with specific instructions about where the track should start and at what volume. The DJ forwarded the request to the bride assuming it was a joke. It was not a joke. She had also prepared a specific walking pace to match the beat. The bride declined the request. The bridesmaid downloaded the song onto her phone and played it from her clutch purse at a moderate volume as she walked down the aisle anyway. 22. A young woman told the bride directly that she should not cry during the ceremony because it would ruin the group photo energy. She said this at the rehearsal dinner in front of 7 people like it was practical advice. The bride stared at her across the table for a long moment. It was her own wedding. She had been engaged for 14 months. Her grandmother was flying in from another country to watch. The bridesmaid explained that puffy eyes photographed poorly and suggested the bride practice emotional regulation techniques she had learned from a podcast. The bride cried during every single part of the ceremony and looked absolutely beautiful in every photo. 23. A bridesmaid demanded the wedding venue change its Wi-Fi password to something she could manifest with before the reception began. She approached the venue manager privately and explained that the current password, which was a random string of numbers, was energetically incompatible with her intentions for the evening. She had a replacement suggestion ready. It was a 14-character affirmation she had been using in her morning routine. The venue manager called the bride over. The bride listened to the full explanation with remarkable patience. The password was not changed. The bridesmaid used her mobile data the entire night and complained about the signal in 3 separate Instagram stories. 24. An older bridesmaid insisted the entire rehearsal be rescheduled because her psychic had told her the original date carried bad energy for group gatherings. She brought this up during a planning call with complete confidence like it was a scheduling conflict anyone could understand. The venue had already been booked. The caterer had confirmed. Out of town, family had purchased train tickets. The bride asked if there was any flexibility in the psychic's reading. The bridesmaid said she could ask, but sessions were $40 each. The rehearsal stayed on the original date. Everything went perfectly. The bridesmaid told her psychic about it, and the psychic said the good outcome proved the bad energy had been successfully avoided. 25. A bridesmaid demanded the wedding videographer film a separate documentary-style segment exclusively about her friendship with the bride with a minimum runtime of 10 minutes. She sent this request in a formal email with a subject line that read, "Content Proposal." The videographer had been hired to cover a wedding. He forwarded the email to the bride with a single question mark. The bridesmaid had already drafted a list of interview-style questions she wanted the videographer to ask her on camera. The bride declined the documentary segment. The bridesmaid asked a guest to film her on an iPhone instead, and edited it into a 7-minute video she posted the following week. 26. A woman contacted the wedding band directly and told them they needed to learn her personal entrance song because she planned to arrive at the reception after the bride. She sent the track name and key signature in the same message, like this was a standard industry request. The band had never received an entrance song request for a guest who was not getting married. The lead musician called the bride immediately. The bride called the bridesmaid. The bridesmaid explained that her entrance deserved its own moment, and she did not want to be overshadowed by the crowd's energy shifting when the couple arrived. The band did not learn the song. She hummed it herself while walking in. 27. A bridesmaid asked the bride to fire the hired makeup artist 3 weeks before the wedding and replace her with someone who exclusively does editorial looks. She sent a portfolio of the suggested artist as evidence that the current choice was too natural for a wedding of this scale. The bride had already done a trial with her makeup artist. She liked her work. She had already paid a deposit. The bridesmaid said the current artist made people look like themselves, which she meant as an insult. The bride kept her original artist. Every bridesmaid looked stunning. The one who complained about natural looks was photographed looking completely like herself and was furious. 28. A bridesmaid demanded the ring bearer carry a second decorative pillow during the processional exclusively for her personal belongings so she would not have to hold anything while walking. She submitted this request to the bride during the rehearsal like it was a minor logistical detail. The ring bearer was 6 years old. He was already focused entirely on not dropping the actual rings. The bride explained that adding a second pillow with a clutch purse and a phone on it was not something a 6-year-old should be responsible for. The bridesmaid carried her own belongings down the aisle and handed them to a guest in the front row without asking permission. 29. A bridesmaid sent the bride an invoice for emotional labor after attending a single dress fitting that lasted 90 minutes. The invoice was itemized. It included a line for active listening, one for supportive nodding, and a separate charge for travel time to the boutique, which was 12 minutes from her apartment. The bride received it on a Wednesday morning and called her maid of honor before responding. Together, they read through every line item. The emotional labor was billed at $30 per hour. The bride did not pay the invoice. The bridesmaid followed up 2 weeks later, asking if the bride had received it and whether she preferred Venmo or PayPal. 30. A bridesmaid demanded a full bridesmaid biography be printed inside the wedding program with her LinkedIn profile listed at the bottom for professional networking purposes. She submitted the paragraph herself. It was written in third person. It included her job title, 2 career achievements, and a line about her passion for human connection. The wedding program already had photos and an order of ceremony. There was limited space. The bride read the submission and genuinely did not know how to respond for several minutes. The biography was not printed. The bridesmaid brought business cards to the reception instead and placed one on every table during cocktail hour while nobody was watching. 31. A bridesmaid contacted the groom's entire family through a group message and asked them to stop posting any wedding photos until she had posted hers first. She sent this message the morning of the wedding before the ceremony had even started. The groom's mother had posted a single photo of the venue flowers. His aunt had shared a getting ready picture. Neither post featured the bridesmaid at all. The groom saw the message during his tie adjustment and handed his phone to his best man without saying a word. The family posted anyway. The bridesmaid spent the reception monitoring everyone's social media between dances and left 3 comment section reminders about her posting timeline. 32. A woman contacted the venue's lighting coordinator independently and requested a dedicated follow spot that would track her specifically throughout the entire processional. She sent her measurements, her dress color, and her preferred warmth setting for the light. The lighting coordinator assumed this was coming from the bride and nearly added it to the official setup plan. The bride found out during the final venue walkthrough when the coordinator mentioned the follow spot request and pointed at the wrong person. The bridesmaid explained that good lighting was a basic human need, and she simply wanted to look her best. The follow spot was removed from the plan. She walked through the processional, squinting at the ceiling looking for it anyway. 33. A bridesmaid demanded a private holding room before the ceremony completely separate from the rest of the bridal party so she could stay in her zone. She made this request 4 days before the wedding, like venues simply had spare rooms sitting empty for personal zone maintenance. The venue had 1 bridal suite. It was already being used by the bride and 6 other people doing hair and makeup simultaneously. The coordinator explained there was no additional space available. The bridesmaid found an unused coat closet near the back entrance and sat inside it for 25 minutes before the ceremony with the door slightly open, claiming it was close enough. 34. A bridesmaid secretly created a competing group chat with the other bridesmaids titled Actual Planning and started reorganizing the entire wedding without involving the bride. She added everyone except the bride and the maid of honor and began sending alternative vendor suggestions and a revised timeline. 2 bridesmaids screenshot everything immediately and sent it directly to the bride. The bride was in the middle of a cake tasting when the screenshots arrived. She read through 14 messages of unsolicited replanning while holding a fork with lemon elderflower cake on it. The competing group chat was dissolved within the hour. The bridesmaid claimed it was meant as a surprise resource and seemed genuinely confused by the reaction. 35. A bridesmaid required the bride to personally approve her bridal shower outfit 3 full months before the event even had a confirmed date. She sent a mood board first, then 4 outfit options with fabric descriptions, then a follow-up asking which shoes worked best with option 2. The bride was simultaneously managing a venue deposit, a catering tasting, and a guest list dispute when this mood board arrived. She opened it during a lunch break and stared at it for a while before responding. She approved option 3 just to end the conversation. The bridesmaid showed up to the shower in option 1 anyway and asked the bride if she noticed the fabric was slightly different from what was submitted. 36. A young woman insisted she receive a +2 invitation instead of a +1 because one of her guests was her spiritual advisor and the other was her spiritual advisor's assistant. She explained this during the final headcount call like it was a completely standard accommodation that any reasonable couple would understand. The venue had a strict guest limit. Every seat had been carefully allocated. The bride asked if the spiritual advisor could attend without the assistant. The bridesmaid said the assistant handled scheduling and emotional transitions between sessions and was essentially non-negotiable. Neither the advisor nor the assistant made the final guest list. The bridesmaid arrived alone and introduced herself to strangers as someone who had originally been promised a +2. 37. A bridesmaid contacted the couple directly and demanded their entire gift registry be taken down and rebuilt from scratch because the original selections did not reflect the group's taste. She said this like the registry had been created for the bridesmaids rather than the people actually getting married. The couple had spent an entire Sunday afternoon building it together. There were sentimental items on there. There were practical items. There was a stand mixer the bride had wanted for 4 years. The bridesmaid sent a replacement list she had curated herself. The original registry stayed up. The stand mixer was purchased within the week. The bridesmaid bought them a decorative candle holder that matched her own apartment. 38. A bridesmaid demanded the couple's custom monogram be completely redesigned to include a symbol that represented the whole squad. She brought a rough sketch to the stationery appointment without being invited to the stationery appointment. The designer looked at the sketch and then looked at the bride. The monogram had already been finalized and printed on 200 invitations. The bridesmaid said the current design felt exclusionary and that a small addition near the bottom corner would make the bridal party feel seen. The couple did not redesign the monogram. The bridesmaid ordered a custom phone case featuring her suggested squad symbol and displayed it face up on every table she sat at during the reception. 39. A teen bridesmaid contacted the wedding caterer privately and requested a completely custom entree be created just for her that was not on the approved menu as a gesture of inclusion. She described the dish in detail, including preparation method, preferred seasoning, and plating style. The caterer had already finalized a 3-course menu for 140 guests. He forwarded the request to the bride with a note that said he had never received anything like this before. The bride called the bridesmaid and explained that a wedding was not a personal dining experience. The bridesmaid attended the reception and ate the standard menu without complaint, and then told 3 people at her table that she had originally requested something better. 40. A bridesmaid insisted the couple's wedding website include a full Meet the Bridesmaids page featuring a complete paragraph she had written about herself in advance. She submitted her paragraph unprompted along with 3 approved photos and a note about which filter she preferred for the website's image style. The couple's wedding website had an About Us section and a registry link. That was it. The groom read the submitted paragraph and looked at his fiancée slowly. It mentioned the Bridesmaids podcast twice. The Meet the Bridesmaids page was not added to the website. She created her own personal web page titled My Role in the Wedding and linked it in her Instagram bio for 4 months. 41. A bridesmaid demanded the entire bridal party group chat be renamed after her personal daily affirmation without asking anyone in the chat first. She changed the name herself at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday and then sent a voice note explaining that the new name would set a better collective intention for the wedding journey. The chat had been named after the bride and groom's initials for 8 months. 14 people were in that group. Several of them woke up to the notification confused. The bride changed the name back the following morning. The bridesmaid changed it again by noon. This went on for 3 days until the maid of honor removed her admin privileges entirely. 42. An older bridesmaid insisted the bride could not wear her hair down on her wedding day because they had the same hair type and it would be confusing for guests. She raised this concern during the hair trial appointment, like it was a legitimate logistical issue that needed immediate resolution. The bride had been planning a loose romantic style for 2 years. She had saved inspiration photos. She had discussed it with her stylist. The bridesmaid said guests might mix them up in photographs, which was genuinely difficult to take seriously. The bride wore her hair down. Nobody was confused. The bridesmaid pulled her own hair into a tight updo and spent the reception telling people she had done it to help the bride stand out. 43. A woman hired her own personal hype woman to attend the wedding reception and stand near her throughout the evening, clapping and offering enthusiastic affirmations whenever she spoke or entered a room. The bride noticed the unfamiliar guest during cocktail hour, who seemed to be following one bridesmaid specifically and applauding at irregular intervals. The groom asked the venue coordinator if she was part of the entertainment package. She was not part of any package. The bridesmaid explained that she had been working on her confidence and needed consistent external validation in social settings. The hype woman clapped through the first dance, the toasts, and the cake cutting before a family member asked her to please take a seat. 44. A bridesmaid sent a message to the entire bridal party group chat suggesting everyone chip in money to buy her a gift for surviving the wedding planning process. She sent this 3 days before the wedding, while the bride was handling a catering emergency and a florist miscommunication simultaneously. The message included a suggested amount per person and a link to her preferred gift. 2 bridesmaids left the chat immediately. One sent a single question mark as her full response. The bride saw the message during a venue call and had to put the coordinator on hold. The gift was not purchased. The bridesmaid brought it up again at the rehearsal dinner and described the experience as one of the hardest things she had ever done. 45. A bridesmaid demanded the couple write a personalized thank you letter specifically addressed to her and have it professionally framed and displayed at the reception entrance where guests would see it upon arrival. She submitted this request 6 weeks before the wedding with suggested wording already drafted. The reception entrance already had a seating chart, a welcome sign, and a photo display of the couple. The bride read the suggested wording and found that it was mostly compliments the bridesmaid had written about herself in the second person. The framed letter was not displayed. The bridesmaid brought a printed copy in her purse, and showed it to 4 separate guests during the evening, saying the couple had wanted her to have it. 46. A young bridesmaid insisted the couple share their full honeymoon itinerary with her so she could make sure they stayed safe while traveling. She followed this reasonable-sounding request by suggesting she join them for the first 2 days just to help them settle in. The couple was honeymooning in Italy. They had planned every detail over 6 months. The groom read the message and sat quietly for a long moment before responding. The bride replied that they would be completely fine without supervision in Florence. The bridesmaid said she had travel experience and knew the area well. The itinerary was not shared. She tracked their location through a mutual friend's Instagram stories and texted updates to the group chat anyway. 47. A bridesmaid asked the couple to delay their grand exit by at least 30 minutes so she could film a TikTok video inside the venue completely alone before everything was packed up. She brought this up during the final dance like it was a small, reasonable favor between friends. The venue had a strict end time. The catering staff were already beginning to clear tables. The couple had a car waiting outside. The bridesmaid said the lighting inside was too good to waste, and she had a concept that required an empty room. The couple left on schedule. The bridesmaid stayed behind and negotiated 5 minutes with a confused venue staff member and filmed 14 takes before the lights were turned off. 48. A bridesmaid emailed the venue coordinator an entirely alternate color palette for the reception decor and copied the caterer on the message for what she described as cohesion purposes. The wedding colors had been chosen 9 months earlier. Linens had been ordered. Floral arrangements had been confirmed. The caterer received the email and had no idea why he had been included. The venue coordinator forwarded everything to the bride with a note saying she wanted to confirm which palette was actually correct before setup began. The bride called the bridesmaid immediately. The bridesmaid said she had been looking at the original colors for months and felt a refresh was overdue. The original palette was used. She rearranged 2 centerpieces at her table and called it a compromise. 49. A bridesmaid contacted the bride the week before the wedding and demanded to know the full vows in advance so she could prepare her facial expressions accordingly and not be caught off guard by any emotional content. She said this with genuine sincerity, like it was a completely normal part of wedding preparation that most bridesmaids simply forgot to ask about. The bride had written her vows privately over several months. They were personal. They were not a performance requiring audience rehearsal. The groom found out and laughed for a long time. The vows were not shared in advance. The bridesmaid stood at the altar with a printed sheet of generic emotional reaction, prompts she had prepared herself, and cycled through them one by one, regardless of what was actually being said. And that is a wrap on 49 bridesmaids who collectively forgot whose wedding they were actually attending. If any of these felt a little too familiar, we are genuinely sorry, and also please seek help. If you laughed at least once, hit that like button because it is the least you can do after everything these bridesmaids put us through. Subscribe to BrainFumble and turn on notifications so you never miss the next disaster. Now drop a comment below and tell us which one of these 49 was the most unhinged in your opinion. We already have a personal favorite, but we want to hear yours.